The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. And on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are encouraged to post your comments whether you agree with yours truly or not. And thanks to our friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. Welcome to the show. Alan J.C., would you please pay the band so they play the entire theme tomorrow? I guess we're behind in paying the band. Hey, everybody, we got a great show today. You know, a lot of people are reticent to go to the doctor. Either they don't have health insurance, or they do have health insurance, but they don't want to pay the copay, or they have a large deductible that they have to satisfy, or they're very busy and they're happy to have a job if they're working and they don't want to take time off from work to go to the doctor. They've got the sniffles, they got this problem, they got that problem. Maybe it's not enough to require a visit to the doctor, but they feel like they could use some assistance. They get on the phone, they call their moms and pops, who gives them their moms and pops old remedies for solving whatever the problem may be. But you know what? Sometimes they work, but a lot of times they don't. And so the question becomes, where do you go to find out what to do about your health questions? Well, we got a great team here to tell you all about it and to answer all of your questions. Joe and Terry Graedon own and write the syndicated newspaper column, The People's Pharmacy. They've just released a new book. It's an encyclopedia. It's the best choices from the People's Pharmacy, some of the best treatments for medical conditions. Joe and Terry, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Nice to be with you, Gary.
Glad to have you both with us. Tell us, Joe, you're a pharmacologist. Terry, you are a medical anthropologist. Why don't we start by answering the question, what the hell is a medical anthropologist?
Well, a medical anthropologist is an anthropologist who studies health. And basically, we like to see how people's beliefs and behaviors affect their health.
So do you go back and look at historically things in a person's culture that might affect their health? For example, I was just going to say, in some religions, you're not supposed to eat dairy and beef, and you're not supposed to eat shellfish. And I think there were some really good medical reasons for that. Yeah, I mean, the people who are religious believe that God ordained that they're not supposed to. But regardless of whether you believe that or not, aren't there good medical reasons for some of the traditions that we have today?
Very often those traditions are rooted in some fundamental reason that if you followed those rules, you were less likely to get sick. As you know, shellfish are extremely susceptible to spoilage, so if you get very far from the ocean and you start eating shellfish, you may get sick. Unless you have refrigeration, which they didn't have 3,000-4,000 years ago.
That's right. That's right. Well, today, if you let it sit out there on the shelf, it's the same problem. I had opportunity to read through a lot of best choices from the People's Pharmacy. These are actual answers to actual questions that have come up over the years in your column. It's really hands-on advice on things that people can do to prevent ill health or to actually treat at least the symptoms of the health. One of the things that you speak about right out of the box in this book, which I think Terry and Joe is very important, has to do with generic drugs. The insurance companies are limiting doctors, almost prescribing on behalf of doctors what they can give to their patients because they disallow the name brand drugs. And many consumers and even many physicians are concerned that the medications that they are prescribing for their patients really are not the best that they can give them. The insurance companies say, oh no, these off-brand drugs are just as good as the name brand. Where do you guys stand on that issue?
Well, Gary, here's a disclaimer. For 25 years, we said generic drugs are great. Demand, not just ask, demand that your doctor write a generic prescription. Make sure your pharmacist fills it for a generic drug, because you can save so much money. And these days, prescription drugs are so expensive, it does seem like a logical approach. So we've been beating the drum for generic drugs for a very long time, until about 5 or 6 years ago, when we started hearing from a lot of people who told us, the generic just doesn't work as well. My blood pressure's gone up. Or I used to take an epilepsy medicine like Dilantin. It worked great. I haven't had seizures in many years. I got switched to the generic, and all of a sudden, I had a breakthrough seizure. We've had people tell us that their heart medicine didn't work as well when they got switched to a generic. And more recently, a particular antidepressant, Wellbutrin XL300, which for many people was working phenomenally well to control depression, when they got switched to the generic, not only did their depression come back after a couple of weeks, but they started experiencing side effects like very severe headaches, tremor, nausea, and insomnia. So the point is that we have begun to question the FDA's ability to guarantee that all brand name drugs and generic drugs are identical. And then along came China, and we heard about how all of that pet food was contaminated with melamine. And now we hear that infant formula also contaminated with melamine. Oh, and let's not forget the heparin story. Since so many generic drugs come from China and India, we worry that the FDA is not capable of verifying that those generic drugs are up to the quality that Americans would expect.